They started laughing before the lawyer even finished reading the will. Not loud at first, just small chuckles, exchanged glances, the kind of laughter people try to hide when they think they're being polite. But it didn't stay quiet for long. Because the moment he said the words, "the lakeside property," my cousin actually leaned back in his chair and laughed out loud. "The shack," he said. "She left you the shack?" A few more laughs followed. Someone whispered, "That thing is falling apart." Another added, "Probably worth less than the land it sits on." I didn't say anything. I just sat there, hands folded, listening to them decide the value of something they had never taken the time to understand. The lawyer cleared his throat and continued, but it didn't matter. Their attention was already gone. To them, the will had already been divided into winners and losers. My cousins got the city house. My aunt got the investment accounts. My uncle took over the business share. And me? I got what they called Grandma's old shack. They thought it was a joke. I didn't correct them, because I remembered something they didn't. Grandma never gave anything away without a reason. The first time she took me to that place, I was 12. It wasn't impressive. The paint was faded, the porch slightly uneven, and the roof looked like it had survived more storms than anyone could count. But she didn't show it to me like it was broken. She showed it to me like it was important. People only see what they expect to see, she told me that day, standing by the lake as the water moved quietly in front of us. If you ever want to understand something, look twice. I didn't understand what she meant back then, but I remembered it. Years later, sitting in that lawyer's office while everyone else laughed, those words came back to me. Look twice. After everything was signed and finalized, my cousins were still talking about it. "You can probably sell it for scrap," one of them said as we walked out. "Or just tear it down," another added. "Start fresh." I nodded slightly, like I was considering it. "Maybe," I said. They smiled, satisfied, already moving on to things they thought mattered more. No one asked if I had ever been there. No one asked if I knew anything about it. Because in their minds, they already had the full picture. And that was their mistake. I didn't go there immediately. I waited a week. Not because I wasn't curious, but because I didn't want to rush something that clearly meant more than it appeared. When I finally drove out, the road felt familiar in a distant way. Trees lined both sides, the same way they had years ago, the same quiet stretching ahead like nothing had changed. The house looked exactly how I remembered it. Old, quiet, unimpressive, at least on the surface. I stepped out of the car and stood there for a moment, just looking at it. To anyone else, it was exactly what they said. A shack. But I had learned something since I was 12. Not everything shows itself at first glance. I walked up the porch slowly, the wood creaking slightly under my steps. The door opened without resistance, like it had been waiting. Inside, everything was simple. Furniture covered with sheets, shelves lined with old books, a faint smell of time sitting still. Nothing valuable. Nothing obvious. I walked through each room carefully, not searching. Just observing. Because if Grandma had left this to me, there was a reason. And it wasn't random. The back room caught my attention first. Smaller than the others, quieter, almost hidden. There was a desk in the corner, old but solid, with a single drawer. Locked. That was the first thing that didn't fit. I didn't force it open. Instead, I stepped back and looked around again. Looked twice. I checked the shelves, the walls, the floor. Then I noticed something small. A key. Taped underneath the desk. Hidden in the simplest place possible. I smiled slightly, because that was exactly like her. I unlocked the drawer slowly. Inside wasn't money. It wasn't jewelry. It wasn't anything they would have expected. It was documents. Carefully organized. Neatly stacked. Important. And as I started reading, everything changed. The first document didn't look important. Just paper. Typed. Stamped. But the moment I read the header, I stopped. Because it wasn't about the house. Not directly. It was about the land. I sat down slowly, the old chair creaking under me, and read every line again, carefully this time. Ownership records. Zoning classifications. Transfer agreements. Dates going back further than I expected. Far further. My name was there. Recent. Clear. Final. But underneath it, there were layers. Old agreements tied to development rights. Water access permissions. Commercial zoning approvals that had never been activated. I flipped to the next page. Then the next. Each one adding something new. Not random. Not accidental. Planned. All of it. Grandma hadn't left me a shack. She had left me control. Control over land that stretched far beyond what anyone could see from the porch. Control over rights no one in the family even knew existed. Control over something that had been waiting, quietly, for the right moment. I leaned back and looked around the room again. Same walls. Same furniture. Same quiet air. But now, it felt different. Because now I could see what she saw. Not what it looked like. What it was. The property line extended past the lake. Past the trees. Into land that had recently been marked for future development. High value. Strategic. Hidden behind something everyone dismissed. I let out a slow breath. Not from surprise. From understanding. She didn't choose randomly. She chose the one person who wouldn't overlook it. The one person who would look twice. I stayed there for hours, going through every document, every note, every detail she had left behind. By the time the sun started to set, the picture was complete. This wasn't just valuable. It was leverage. The kind of leverage people spend years trying to build. And she had placed it, quietly, in my hands. A week later, the calls started. At first, they came indirectly. Inquiries. Interest. Developers asking about the area. No one mentioned the house. They didn't care about the house. They cared about what was underneath it, what surrounded it, what connected through it. And I had all of it. Every piece, every right, every decision. I didn't rush. I didn't announce anything. I just listened. Because power isn't in showing what you have. It's in knowing when to use it. Then came the family dinner. The first one since the will. Same table. Same people. Same assumptions. They were talking about renovations. Investments. Plans for their shares. And then someone asked me, "So, what did you end up doing with the shack?" A few smiles. A few quiet laughs. They were still in the same place. Still seeing the same thing. I took a sip of water before answering. "I'm keeping it," I said calmly. That got a reaction. "Why?" my cousin asked. "There's nothing there." I looked at him. Not annoyed. Not defensive. Just clear. "Are you sure?" I asked. He frowned slightly. "What does that mean?" I didn't answer directly. Instead, I reached into my bag and placed a single folder on the table. The same kind I found in that drawer. Clean. Simple. Final. They looked at it. Then at me. Then back at it. Curiosity replaced confidence. My uncle opened it first. His expression changed before he even finished the first page. Then my aunt leaned in. Then my cousin. Silence followed. The kind that doesn't need explanation. Because now, they were seeing it. Not the house. The truth. This can't be right, my cousin said. "It is," I replied. But we didn't. "I know," I said. Because that was the point. They didn't look. They assumed. And assumptions don't hold up against reality. "How much is this worth?" someone asked quietly. I didn't answer. Because the number wasn't the important part. Understanding was. And they were just starting to reach it. "So you own all of this?" my uncle asked. Yes. No hesitation. No explanation. Just fact. The room felt different now. Not tense. Not loud. Just shifted. Because power had moved. And everyone could feel it. My cousin leaned back slowly, the same way he had in the lawyer's office when he laughed. But this time, there was no smile. "Why didn't you say anything?" he asked. I looked at him for a moment, then gave the simplest answer. "You didn't ask." Silence again. But this one stayed longer, because there was nothing left to fill it with. No jokes, no comments, no assumptions, just understanding. I stood up after a moment. The conversation was over, not because everything had been said, but because everything had been seen. As I walked out, I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because the same people who laughed at what I was given now understood what they had missed. They thought I inherited nothing. They thought they got everything. But they only looked once, and that was their biggest mistake.